welcome to the Knitting with Cat Hair podcast. My name is Nikki. I'm also known as Knitting with Cat Hair on Instagram and Cat Hair Knitting on Ravelry. I'm coming to you from Sudbury, Ontario, Canada, which lies atop the traditional lands of the Tagamashing Anishinaabe people, where I live with my family and our 5 cats, hence the name of the podcast. So just a heads up, I won't be physically knitting with cat hair in this podcast. However, living in a house where humans are outnumbered by cats, I'm always finding cat hair in my knitting. So I hope everyone is doing well, and a big welcome to all new viewers and a big welcome back to all returning viewers. This is my mostly knitting podcast. However, sometimes I talk about some of the other crafts that I'm getting into. So it's been 3 weeks since my last video, and truthfully, I do not have any finished objects to share with you today. I've been spreading the love around from all my projects, so yeah, I've made quite a bit of progress on them, but no finished objects. And I may have started some new things. So yeah, let's get started. So we do have a make-along happening over on Instagram. We are making Marie Wallin designs. This make-along started August 1st, and it will run until August 1st of next year, 2023. And all you have to do is make a Marie Wallin pattern. It can be crochet, it can be knitted, it can be any type, garment, accessories, blankets, pillows, whatever. As long as it's a design by Marie Wallin, or you're incorporating a design by Marie Wallin. I've had some people ask about that. Sure, go ahead. The rules are pretty loose. All you have to do is work with a Marie Wallin pattern and finish it. There is that caveat. So I will be drawing prizes from the hashtag another year of MWMalFO, but you can share all of your works in progress and all your chatter with the hashtag another year of MWMal over on Instagram. I'll put everything down below. I always put all of the rules in the description below as well. Yeah, so okay, I think that's it for admin things. So let's just jump right in. So I'll start first off with what I'm wearing. Today, I have to say, so the temperatures have dropped. I'm filming outside. We had a frost advisory yesterday overnight. So we did get to, I think it was like -2 or something Celsius overnight. So it's really chilled down over here in Sudbury. And the leaves are starting to change color and it's looking really beautiful. And so I thought it was perfect opportunity to finally wear my chestnut because it's actually cold enough. So I'm wearing my chestnut cardigan that I made. It's a design by Marie Wallin. I have finally put the buttons on. I mentioned this, I think, oh my goodness, several podcast episodes ago when I was talking about the construction and all of the details around making my chestnut. And I had ordered buttons at that time, but they had not received them. So I've since added them in. I'm gonna pop in a picture so you can see a close-up of what the buttons look like. They're really pretty. They're vintage brass buttons that I ordered from the vintage button store over on Etsy. And so what I did a little bit of research. This is my first time making a cardigan with buttons. So I wasn't entirely sure how you go about sewing on buttons. So I did a bit of research, and I think it was my Vogue knitting book that a lot of people have. That's mentioned that when you sew buttons on with thread, with yarn, which was my intention originally, was to use a similar yarn, that the yarn can actually, from use and rubbing and stuff, can actually fray and you can end up losing your buttons. It's just not as secure. So what they recommended, I think it was in the book. I did a bunch of research. It might have even been something online. I can't recall now, but what I found was a suggestion to use dental floss, which is super, super durable, as you know, to sew on your buttons. So I did that. And then I went in, because dental floss is white, and it was like very glaringly obvious that I used something white to sew my buttons on. I went in afterwards with some dark brown embroidery floss and just stitched over top, so you can't even tell. So yeah, I think they turned out really well. I'll just stand up really quickly. Word of warning, I still have not woven in all my ends, although I'm probably about 2/3 through. So you may see some ends hanging out. So yeah. Oh, I can't even show the bottom. There you go. Yeah, I'm really happy with it. Very happy with it. And I was watching Little Monkeys and Me podcast yesterday, and I noticed Fernanda was wearing her beautiful chestnut as well. So yeah, it looked so nice on her. We're like twinsies. Okay, so now let's move into the works in progress that I have. I'm going to start off with this one, which is literally just housed in, I think it's just an Estelle bag that my mom gave me. I can't remember when. I think it was a bag she got from when she purchased some yarn from a knitting store down south. So housed in here is my Ranunculus. Super popular pattern. So many people making it, always talking about it. There is a reason. Truthfully, I'm not one of those people who kind of jumps on bandwagons. I don't think I am. I don't know. I'm very easily influenced, so maybe I am. But I had put off making the Ranunculus for quite some time. And then I think it was last year, I finished my first one. And I realized what the hype was all about. It's such a quick knit. It's really fun and engaging because you've got some simple lace and textured stitches at the kind of the forefront of the pattern. And then it moves into, simple stockinette, and you can make it for as long as you want. You can tailor it with different neckline options. You can add different lengths of sleeves. So it's very versatile. And you can also use lots of different weights of yarn for it, which is cool because it can look completely different depending on the yarn and needle choice you use. So this is my autumn Ranunculus. And I've made quite a bit of progress here. I actually finished the ball of yarn I was using, so I've kind of stopped, and I'm thinking I might go and start working on the sleeves. Yeah. See, it's just this really pretty textured and lace pattern. I chose to do there's directions, like I said, for two different necklines. There's a smaller neckline and a larger neckline. I've always done the larger neckline, but it's not that large. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, but it never turns out huge on mine, like ever. So I don't know. It is stretchy though. But yeah, so I'm pretty happy with it. Not much longer. Should have this done. No promises, but I should have it done for the next episode. So I'll talk about the yarn, and then I'll just talk a little bit about how I've used Nutidin in this project, because I don't know, there might be some helpful tips. So I'm using Nutidin, which is an unspun fiber. I'm not going to struggle with the bags and crinkles, so I'll just show you it in the ball, but it comes in plates. It's an unspun Swedish fiber, which means it has no twist to it. It's very delicate. It breaks very easily. When it's, when you pull on it, and I'll just show you, when you pull, it comes apart. However, when you knit it up into stitches, it's super durable. Like it doesn't fall apart or anything like when you've knit it up. And that has something to do with the staple lengths of the hairs being long. So this is what I'm using. This is, I think the color is called Varflood. It's one of Nutidin's, the Nutidin colors from last year. And I'm knitting this double stranded. So I'm holding two strands together. You can see here. I've wound it into a ball of two different strands. And I'm knitting it that way. I find that provides a lot more structure to the yarn, makes it so that it doesn't break quite as easily. I do use a yarn bowl because I do find if it's not in a yarn bowl where the ball can kind of roll around easily, if there's any kind of tug on it, it still does break. So that's just one tip, is if you're going to roll it into a ball, I find it works best if it's in a yarn bowl. I know some people knit right from the plates. I've tried doing that. It does not work for me. You have to position them below you, and so that you're pulling up. I find if you're working from the middle, And yeah, it's hard to kind of get that exact position, I find personally. Also, I have 5 cats. So if any cat walks by, even if they're not intentionally going for the yarn, if one of them gets their tail caught on it or whatever, it's broken apart. The good news is it goes back together very easily. So, you know, all you have to do if your yarn breaks is to take it and put the 2 ends together and just do a little bit, give a little bit of friction to it, and it felts back together, no problem. So that's the good news. So I will say that Nutidin, I would treat Nutidin as a hand-dyed yarn. So oftentimes we're advised to alternate skeins when we're using hand-dyeds. I would say the same thing about Nutidin. I have seen projects on Ravelry where the individual clearly didn't alternate, and you can see distinct, you know, blocks of color. Even though they're the same color, you can tell the difference. So what I do is, in this project, I'm not alternating skeins the regular way, like, you know, every round or every second round or whatever. I'm not doing it that way. What I've done is I've taken 2 different plates, rolled it up into a ball. The plates are not usually the exact same size, even though, like, you know, when you order them, you're going to get at least the amount that they've told you you're going to get. So let's say 500 grams, you're going to get at least 500 grams, but some of the plates may be smaller and large and some are larger. So that works out well because when I wind my ball, there's always going to be leftovers of one of the 2 plates that I'm using. And so I save that, and then I choose another plate and I wind that together and I use them in order. So now what I've done is, because I've taken those 2 colors, I knit for, you know, until I run out even. And then I take that next one, which was still part of the original 2 colors. I hope this is making sense. And I mix that with a new color. It's almost like marling. Basically, that's what it is. It's like a marling effect, so that you're always getting at least a continuation of one of the colors side by side through the project, if that makes sense, just so you don't get a drastic change in color. So that's what I've been doing. And I can't tell that I've done that. Like I can't see where the distinct line is or anything like that. So I think it's doing the trick. For this, I also put some, so I used the first ball of the 2 colors, and then I went ahead and used the second ball. But on that second ball, I divided it in half because I wanted to save some for the sleeves, because same thing, right? I want the colors to blend. So I want to make sure that I'm not just, you know, rolling up a brand new ball of 2 different colored plates and starting up here, because you may see a distinct line when I join to finish the sleeves. So I split the ball in half and I knit half with the body, and I'll use the rest for the 2 sleeves. And then I'll go on to my 3rd ball. And hopefully that'll be enough to finish the sweater. So that's how I do it. I hope that wasn't too confusing, but yeah, it just helps the color be a little more seamless in your project. Okay, so for the Ranunculus, I am using a US 9 5.5 millimeter needle for the body, and then for the ribbing, I'm using a US 7, which is a 4.5 millimeter. I'm knitting the size 4, which is a 52-inch finished bust, but I'm quite certain that my gauge is off. I can't remember what my gauge is. I think it's smaller. I think mine's turning out smaller than you know it should be. And that's okay. I mean, 52 inches, I have a 45-inch bust. That's 7 inches of positive ease. I do not need 7 inches of positive ease for this one. This is going to be my, autumn one, as I mentioned, and I don't mind it being a little more fitted. And lastly, I'm knitting this up as part of our Unspun Heroes Cal, which is happening over on Instagram. It's a totally informal, anyone can join in. It's being kind of co-hosted by a bunch of podcasters, so you may hear them talk about it on their podcasts. And yeah, just totally informal. So yeah, jump on in if you're using unspun yarn. It started September 1st and it will run until January 31st. So you've got plenty of time. Okay, I think that's it for the Ranunculus. Daffodil is a pattern by Marie Wallin, knitting it up as part of our make-along. And it is found in this springtime collection book. That's where I'm using it from. However, you can buy the patterns individually as well on Ravelry. I always forget to mention this, and I'm going to mention it this time. When you are knitting one of Marie Wallin patterns, always check the errata, because I think, this is my, I have 3 that I finished the Chestnut, working on the Daffodil. I also have a Samphrey. All 3 of them have had errata in the charts. So definitely check that out. Work from the errata charts is my advice. And I think one of the issues, it wasn't I don't know that there was actual errors for the daffodil. It was the symbology that she used in her chart in the book was very confusing, because, for instance, I can't remember the exact issue, but there's a symbol. Let's say when it's a dash, it means, let's just say it means knit. I'm just making this up. A dash means knit. Dash dash means knit 2 together. What happens is in the chart, you can't tell, there'll be a dash and then another dash, and you're like, am I knitting 2 separate stitches, or does that mean knit 2 together? It was confusing. So the errata changes the symbology and makes it a lot more clear. So just a heads up. I keep meaning to mention that, because that's happened in, like I said, all 3 of the patterns that I've worked on. So just check. Make sure to check. So yes, I'm knitting the daffodil. It's an all over textured and lace, beautiful sweater. It's knit. The pattern calls for it to be knit in pieces, bottom up, and then seamed together. And I'm following the pattern. I have not converted to knitting in the round. And it's housed in this adorable little fox bag by My Needle Crafts. Also not sponsored by anybody. I just talk about what I love on this podcast. Okay, so I finally finished the back panel. Woohoo! So this should be, I think it was 55 centimeters long. And then you start the shaping. Okay, that little progress keeper shows you where I was last time. It doesn't look like I did a lot, but this part, the shaping part, I find takes a lot of brain energy. So yeah. I'll just show you a close-up and then I'll talk about it a little more, but it's got these alternating lace and cable panels all the way across. And then, I always mention this, but at the bottom, I love how the ribbing ties into the actual cables. I think that's so cool. Okay, I want to say that this looks super complicated. I know it does. It looks super complicated to me. It's really not. Honestly, if you know how to do simple cables, I think the biggest cable is an 8-stitch cable. I'm not even using a cable needle. It's that simple. I don't even need to do that. I am using very grippy yarn though, so that does make a difference if you choose not to use a cable needle. I don't advise doing that with superwash. It's too slippery in my experience. But anyways. So I know it looks really complicated. It really isn't. If you can do cabling, simple cables, if you can knit 2 together, if you can do yarn overs, it's really not that hard at all. You just take it one stitch at a time. And if you have to, you put lifelines in. Yeah, I didn't do that. And I have made some mistakes, but this is the back, and you can't tell. I know a few of my mistakes where I made them, especially right at the beginning, but you can't. No one's gonna know. Marie might know, but I don't think I'm meeting her anytime soon. But anyways, yeah. So I highly recommend giving it a go. I don't know. It looks so cool. This is my first time doing an all over lace cable kind of pattern. so it's new to me, but yeah, I'm finding it super enjoyable. So now the trickiest part for me, and this was the same for the Chestnut, are the instructions for the shaping. I will say that when I started knitting seriously in 2017, I started with the patterns that I kind of started with were Andrea Mowry patterns, so Drea Renee Knits. And she's really good at explaining, you know, everything in detail, which I think a lot of American, Canadian, definitely Western kind of designers do. So I've been truthfully spoon-fed a lot. This pattern isn't like that as much. So it takes some getting used to. Like I said, this is my second, and then I have the Samphrey, which is my third. So I'm starting to get used to that style of, you know, assuming that you understand what is being told, what you're being told to do. So things like, okay, so when you're starting the shaping, you know, doing things like you're decreasing, but you're also, you know, sticking in pattern. And for this part, you kind of separate the left and the back right. So she'll give you the instructions for doing, let's say, the back left, and then she'll just say, reverse shaping for the back right, or whatever. So you have to figure out what that means. So the way that I do it, because I'm very much a visual person, and I have a hard time like visualizing things in my head. So I had no idea what I was doing. I just follow the directions and hope that it's going to work out. I can see now what I've done. But like, truthfully, I write out every single line. So I will find out which row in the pattern I'm in. So let's say I'm on row 8. I will write out, you know, row 8, and then I have to decrease 1 stitch at the neckline and cast off 11 stitches at the outer edge or whatever. Like, I will do that for each and every row. So I just follow them and that's how I keep it straight, which works out really well when you do that for the first side, because you have to go back and reverse the shaping for the next side. And so that helps me figure out, what did I do when I started my row 8? What did I do? Okay, I got to do it the opposite way now. That kind of thing. It's not, yeah, it's just, it takes a little more effort, and I don't dislike it. I have to make time for it, and I have to like actually concentrate and figure out what I'm doing. And I did make mistakes because there's a lot going on, and it happens. I had to rip back and redo the shaping. So you know what? It's fine. It's a learning experience, and I don't want to scare anyone away from this. I just want to let you know, heads up, like, it is different. It's different than, you know, someone telling you exactly what to do line by line. You're going to have to figure that out yourself. And that's okay. It's good to use your brain. So yeah, I've done all the shaping, and I hope it's correct. And I have it on a cord. So these are the center stitches, and this is for the neckline. So that is that. I have started the front. Oh gosh, there's really not much to show. I just started the ribbing at the bottom. So you basically, like, for the front, I think it says, you know, you just make it the exact same way as the back, except for you stop 15 rows or something. I can't remember the number, but you stop a certain number of rows before you start the shaping. And then you're going to probably start doing a lower neckline in the front, I'm guessing. I don't know. I'll see when I get there. I'm one of those people who does not read through the pattern completely first. I am terrible for that. That's probably a big fault too. Yeah, I just trust the pattern and go line by line. Yeah, so I'm using Holst Yarn Super Soft to knit my daffodil. It's my first time using it. I have a cone of it. It is in the colorway Sweet Pea, which is this really pretty purpley pink. It's got, so from far away it looks like a pink, and then when you look up close you can see that there's like kind of like speckles of purple and yellow. It's really pretty, really pretty. So that's what I'm using for my daffodil. I am holding that yarn single stranded, and my gauge is still too loose. as per usual. I am still knitting the size XL, which I normally would, which accommodates a 44 to 46 inch bust, and I have a 45 inch bust. I'm using a US 1 needles, which is a 2.25 millimeter needle for the ribbing, and a US 2 2.75 millimeter for the body. And yeah, like I mentioned, I'm knitting this up for our make-along. Okay, let's move on to the next. Since I've already mentioned it, we'll move on to the next Marie Wallin project that I'm working on. This is the Samphrey. The Samphrey, it can be found in their Shetland book, but again, you can buy it individually. Again, check for the errata. Also, I should mention, sorry, backing up to the daffodil, pattern is not size inclusive. Neither is the Samphrey. I should be very upfront about that. I always forget to mention it. I've mentioned it several times in the past, but I'm going to try to remember to mention it every single time. Not size inclusive. Marie has expanded her sizes in her most recent Cumbria book. However, I would argue that it's still not what I would consider size inclusive. I think it goes up to 3XL. I can't remember the dimensions, but it certainly doesn't go up to a 60-inch bust, which I consider, you know, the minimum for size inclusivity. Just a heads up there. So I'm making the Samphrey. It is an all over Fair Isle colorwork pullover jumper that the pattern calls for you to knit in pieces and then seam up, snip bottom up. Again, during my experience making my chestnut, I found that I did not enjoy the process of seaming color work. I just find it really messy, and I just didn't enjoy it. I'll just leave it at that. Not my favorite thing. So for this one, for the Samphrey, I have converted to knitting in the round to avoid seaming as much as possible. So this is what I have. Oh, here's my progress keeper here. It doesn't look like it did a lot, but it's very slow going. I'll say that. Plus I'm working on a million other things at the same time. But yeah, so that turquoise progress keeper shows you where I was last time. So I've now finished one full repeat of the pattern. So like the orange and pink is one section, and then the turquoise and green is another. So I've done 2 sections, and now I'm starting to continue back on with the orange and pink section. It also has like miles of ribbing. Can't remember how much there is, but it's a lot. Is it 10 centimeters of ribbing? Anyways, it's a lot of ribbing. That took forever in itself. But I just love the colors. It's really, really pretty. And it's still, like, to me, it's still very autumny. It's one of her more subtle, kind of lower contrast patterns, which I really enjoy. I really like it. It's got 14 different colors in it. I am using the called for yarns, which are Jamieson's Shetland Spindrift. Okay, sorry, this is going to look messy. I didn't organize them today. They're all housed in this little basket here. So I have 14 different colors. This is my first time working with this yarn, and I'm really enjoying it. It's actually, to me, it's more of a softer, rustic-y yarn. Like, it's definitely woolly, but it's not prickly woolly. Okay, that's because I'm comparing it to the Let Lopi, which is definitely a lot more scratchier. It doesn't bother me. I have a really high tolerance to the itch factor, but I know some people don't. So yeah, I mean, everyone's different. So you'd really have to feel it for yourself to see if it would cause you, itchiness. I'm wearing, this is British Breeds. That's what this was knit out of, and I'm there wearing it next to skin on my arms, and it's not itchy at all. It's really nice. Anyways, so back to the Samphrey. So I've converted to knitting in the round. I think I'm gonna knit in the round until the point where the sleeve holes will be. I forget how far up that is. I have it written down somewhere, but I'll stop there, and then I'm gonna divide for front and back and knit flat. because I don't know that I'm ready to steek sleeves. I don't know how to do that yet. I'll talk about it later, but I am steeking my first garment, but it's just like to make it into a cardigan. So it's just the front steek. I still don't understand the whole neck steeking and arm steeking. I'm not there yet. Getting there. But anyway, so yes, that's the plan. I'll split for front and back and knit them separately flat. And that's fine. Like, I don't mind purling color work, but I will say that this particular pattern, just given the nature of it, of the design, involves a lot of float catching. If you catch floats, I hear some people don't catch floats at all. I do. So I catch my floats after every 5 stitches. So in this instance, that involves a lot of float catching. And float catching on the purl side, not my favorite thing to do. I can do it. It's just very slow, very, very slow for me. So anyways, I'm gonna have to. And I talk about this in earlier episodes, but I did kind of do some gauge swatching to see if my gauge changes, if there's a difference when I knit in the round versus when I knit flat, because I was worried, there might be really evident difference between the two. And my stitch count, my stitch gauge does not change. However, my row gauge does by a little bit. I think I'm a little looser when I knit flat. Is that what I determined? I can't remember. I think so. So that's okay. Just means I won't have to knit as much, I guess, lengthwise. Okay, so yeah, that's what I'm doing for the Samphrey. I'm using, I talk about this so many times, but I'm just going to say in general terms that after this large panel of ribbing, people were noticing a big bulge when you switch to your next needle size. It was kind of making the fabric bulge out. And so to avoid that, I decreased needle sizes. So I went down to a smaller needle size after the ribbing, whereas normally you'd go bigger, right? So I went lower, and then I've just gradually increased needle sizes to get back up to the one that I should be at, which is a US 3.25 millimeter needle for the body. And I use a US 2.75 millimeter for the rib. So I've mentioned already that this happens for me for everything. My gauge is looser. And in this instance, it made such a difference because I refused to go down another needle size. I couldn't bear the thought of knitting yet another project on US 2.75 millimeter needles. So instead I opted to go down a pattern size. So instead of knitting the extra large, which I normally would, I'm knitting the large. And with some math calculations, hopefully they're right, I should end up with pretty much the exact same size as I would have if I knit the extra large with the required gauge. So it should work out. I've mentioned there's lots of float catching, and I mentioned this last episode, but so I'm not going to go into detail about it again, but I am weaving in my ends as I go. These just need to be cut. Those are my ends, but they're woven in because when I knit this, look at me. How many months ago did I finish this? I think it was July 1st. July, August, September. We're coming up on October, almost 3 months, and I still haven't finished weaving in my ends. So I learned my lesson. I will always weave in as I go now because that's just no. I hate weaving in ends. Talked about that numerous times. Okay, so I think that's it for the Samphrey. Okay, we'll move on to my Treysta, which is a pattern by Jennifer Steingass. I am knitting it out of issue 3 of Lina magazine. I will pop in the picture because the pictures in here aren't the greatest at showing the entire sweater. Again, I will say this pattern is not size inclusive. I'm knitting the largest size, which goes in the finished bust size, I think for that is 49.75 inches. And I think I had a look on Ravelry because I wasn't sure if the pattern had been expanded or if there was a difference. Yeah, it's not been expanded, I don't think. I remember looking at it and going, yeah, it's still not size inclusive anyways. So just a heads up. I think Jennifer Steingass is way better now at making sure that their sizing, like that the sizing is more expansive. So that's good. This was one of her earlier ones. But anyways, okay, so I'm knitting the Treysta. I'm converting it. It's originally a pullover. I'm converting it to a cardigan. And here's what I have. The ribbing is flipping up, but I've finished the whole body and I'm almost done the first sleeve. So all of those are just my decrease rounds to keep track of, so that when I go on to do my second sleeve, I can make sure that I'm decreasing the same number of times. I just moved the stitch markers over. Yeah, so I'm really happy with it. Really happy with it. The only thing is I did try it on. So I tried it on. I'm lazy. I have my sleeves on these stitch holders that are like big safety pins, basically. Sorry, I'm getting some glare here. There we go. Yeah, so I can't try on the one arm because you can't get your arm through there. I can't. So when I tried it on, I could only put on the one sleeve, and the sweater's a little snug, and it's supposed to be a cardigan. I'm hoping it's going to grow. I've been told that Let Loopy does kind of expand over time, so that will be good news. Plus, I mean, I haven't cut it open, obviously, and I'm going to put a button band on there, so it will get bigger, because I think the button band's going to be as big as the collar ribbing, like that, maybe that. Anyways, so it will get bigger. The length is a little short, so we'll have to see. I might have to go back in and add some length, but I always get so impatient when I'm knitting the body. Do you guys do this? Where you're just like, oh, it looks long enough. Yeah, I've done that numerous times. You think I'd learned my lesson, because yeah, I always say, oh, I'm going to go back and lengthen it, and then I don't. This one might not matter so much because it's a cardigan. It's going to be open, and it's just something to throw on top of things. But anyway, that is my Treysta. And so I mentioned this before, but those steeking, again, is when you cut your knitting. So what I'm going to do is I've added in some extra stitches to allow for the cutting. So I'm going to cut down that column of knit stitches in the center there. I did 2 purl, 1 knit, 2 purl. And so I cut down the center. And then you're going to open it up, and you take the edges and you sew them down and pick up and add a button band. And I've heard that some people have recommended picking up the button band before you steek. So I might try that. I wonder if it just makes it easier because you can see where the stitches are. It's just cleaner. I'm going to try that this time. I've never done this before. Oh, but it seems like a good idea. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm making as I mentioned, the largest size in the book, which is an XXXL. So that's a 3X, I guess. Triple XL. 49.75 inch finished bust circumference. I'm using US 4 needles for the ribbing, which, is a 3.5 millimeter for the ribbing and for the non-color work. And I have to go up 2 sizes in needles to keep my gauge the same when I'm doing color work. So I have gone up to a US 6, 4 millimeter in my color work section. And I've opted not to put color work on the sleeves or at the bottom. I decided not to. Yeah, so it's almost done. I think, again, I'm making all these promises, but I'm hoping to have it done by the next podcast. We'll see if that happens. Okay, so that's that. Sorry, and I should mention my bag because I'm very proud of it. I made it. It was housed in this beautiful, I think it's Morris inspired. I think so. Anyways, I really love the print. It's got a peacock and a wolf or a fox and a hare at the bottom there. Yeah, really cute. And on the inside, I've shown it before and I don't know, it doesn't really show up very well. I don't know if you guys can see. Oh, you can kind of see it today. Just fold it down. It's lined with bumblebee fabric. You see there's a bee there and flowers and more bees. It's this gold, really pretty fabric. Anyways, my mom helped me make this. Totally helped me make this step by step. And I'm hoping when she comes, I think she's gonna be spending Christmas with us again this year. And if she does, I'm hoping she can help me make some more things because I haven't sewn since she left. I'm not a sewist. I wanna be. I guess I don't want to be that much because I'm not putting in the effort. In theory, I want to be a sewist. I love the idea of being able to make my own clothes. But I'm not very good with a sewing machine. And I get impatient. See, I don't get impatient with knitting. It's funny. But with sewing, I get very impatient. How about you? Do you guys sew? Do you find there's a difference between your crafts? Do you have more patience for one craft than another? I'm interested to know that. Tell me I'm not alone here. Okay, so we've talked about that. Okay, I have one more knitting project. Where is it? There. Which is a new cast on, which is totally not my fault. I have a daughter and a stepdaughter. And when they were younger, I used to knit for them all the time. And then they got to an age where they're like, we don't want your stuff anymore. Stop making me stuff. Especially unsolicited stuff. And then they can't think of anything they'd actually want. My daughter's so picky, so picky. One year I talked about this, I think, it wasn't last year, it was the year before. I was trying to make her a black hat because she lost her original black cabled hat that I made her and she wanted another one. And I tried 3 different patterns of hats in a weekend. I made her 3 different hats and none of them were good enough. She didn't like any of them. Oh gosh. Anyways, needless to say, they're not as knit-worthy as they used to be when they were little and couldn't protest. They're 12 and 15. So now I jump at the chance. If they ask me to make them something, I'm all over it. So my daughter, I forget how it came about. Oh, I was on Instagram and I saw someone posting pictures of these stuffed animals that they were making or planning to make. And I was like, oh, those are so cute. I wish I had someone in my life I could knit those for. And my daughter was like, what? And she looked at it and she's like, oh, those are cute. She didn't love them 100%. She's like, I'd really like a rabbit, but not that particular rabbit. So we did a little bit of digging and found a rabbit that she wanted. And it is called Christopher Bunny. It's by Susan B. Anderson, who's pretty well known in the knitting community. And yes, it's a very cute bunny. And I think what sold her too was the hoodie that goes along with it. So anyways, I've cast on for Christopher Bunny. We went through my stash and it calls for worsted weight yarn. So I just pulled out a bunch of worsted weight colors or whatever. And she ended up choosing this one, which is a Patton's Classic Wool Worsted. It is in the color Natural Mix, which never shows up as pretty on camera as it is in real life. It's so gorgeous. It's got like grays and browns and it's just really, really beautiful. It's a mix and it's very pretty. And so this isn't gonna look like much because I had to put things on hold, but I have a head And I'm using DPNs because if you remember, I ran out of cords. I can't use my chow glue because I have too many projects on the needles. So luckily I had the DPNs in the right size. So I've made the head. These are where the little ears are going to go. I will have popped in a picture so you can see what he looks like. I had to stop because I'm at the eye part where you have to make the eyes, and I searched high and low and didn't have any buttons, matching buttons that were small enough that would work. And I tried to do some French knots and they just were too small. They just didn't look great. And my French knots come undone. I'm not good at them. So I said, okay, I'll order some safety eyes because that's what they have in the pattern and they do look cute. They're just little beady black eyes. So I've placed an order for those safety eyes and they should be arriving any day now. I ordered them from a store on Etsy out of Toronto, I think, or Richmond Hill. And I was thinking, if this goes well, because when you order the safety eyes, you don't just get like a single pair. It's like 10 sets or something for like $3. They're super cheap. But I thought, well, if it turns out okay, I might make one for our neighbor, because our neighbor has a little daughter and she's just over 1 now, almost 1.5. So I thought that might be cute for Christmas or something. And really, it's because I want to make the little tiny clothes to go along with it. So I'll pop in a picture of what the little hoodie looks like that my daughter wants as well. And she's chosen the yarn for that. She wants it in a green. And I think we're going to use Cascade 220 worsted olive heather colorway. I don't have it with me, but you'll see it on a future podcast episode when I get around to making it. So yeah, it's been really fun. Sorry, I think I hear a squirrel. Yes, it's a little black squirrel. I don't know if you can see him. Him. It's right here. And then I hear a little red squirrel that's complaining a bit because the black squirrel's here. Sorry, totally distracted by wildlife here. Okay, so yeah, Christopher Bunny, waiting for the eyes to move forward. I forgot to bring it out. So, yeah, I didn't bring it. What I have been doing over time, and I actually saw this for the first time on November Woods' podcast, Alexandra. She hasn't podcasted in a while, but way back when I first started watching her podcast, I distinctly remembered her showing how she was saving all of the ends of her yarn. Like when you weave in an end and you cut and you have a little snippet left or whatever, or you don't have enough yarn left to make anything with it, so it's just like a tail end or whatever. She was saving all of those, and she had mentioned she was saving them for stuffing for things. And that stuck with me, and I just, on a whim, just started saving all my ends. And I think that started last year. Yes, because I started making Susan B. Anderson's, I forget what the name of it is, but it's like an autumn garland type thing. And I had started with the little acorn, and I needed some stuffing for it. And I have polyfill, and I truthfully don't want to buy polyfill. It's plastic, and I just don't want to buy it. From an environmental perspective, anyways. Why, when you have all these bits of wool at your disposal, why would I? So yeah, I'm going to use all the ends that I've been saving to stuff the bunnies that I'm gonna make. So yeah, just a little tip. I thought that was pretty ingenious. So okay, I think that's it for the knitting chat. Knitting specific. I have other crafts I'm going to talk about too. But if you're just here for the knitting, thank you so much. And if you did enjoy this, please do give it a like and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of my future podcast episodes. Okay, so now I'll move into some crochet. Just trying to figure out. Okay, so I picked up both blankets. I don't know what is with me. I literally was working on anything and everything over the past 3 weeks. If I would have focused my energy on one particular project, I would have had finished objects to show. But you know what? I'm a strong believer in making what makes you happy. Knitting is a joyful pastime for me, and I don't want to feel pressured. I don't want to feel stressed about it. I make I work on what I want, what my heart wants, unless it's a test knit and you have deadlines and things like that. But that's why I don't really sign up for very many test knits. I've only done the one. It was a good experience. It's not like it was a bad experience or anything, but anyways, back to me working on everything. So I made quite a bit of progress on my Battenberg blanket, which is a pattern by Sandra Paul. I'm sorry, I have not taken time to weave in more ends, so there's going to be lots of ends showing here, and the blanket is going off in a weird direction. So yeah, this is how far I've come now. I did quite a bit. I'm really enjoying it. I've actually run out of squares. Now I have to start making like more colored squares because I've run out, and I've finished my first skein of the cream color. So yeah, these are all my leftovers. Some of them aren't even leftovers, they were full skeins of superwash skinny singles from Hedgehog, along with other superwash singles. There's a few superwash sock yarns in here as well. But yeah, I'm basically using all my superwash yarns that I have in my stash that are fingering weight for this blanket. And it's so bright and cheerful. And I'm knitting this up as part of Mega from Skeins of Dreams, her Blankets of Dreams Mal. And Yana from Finished Knitting Stories has started fairly recently a Happy Scrappy blanket mal, I think. And I'll be making this up as part of that as well. So yeah. I will say, I forgot to mention this last time I showed this project, but my squares are actually bigger than the ones that Sandra Paul's pattern gives you. Like, I've done an extra row, or extra round, so my squares are actually bigger. And that's because when I started this blanket during the pandemic 2 years ago, I think it was when I first started, or 3, oh my goodness, 2020. So 2 years ago, I started by following who is it? Casapinka's Blanket of Calm recipe, which is a free pattern as well. So I was following that, and her squares were just bigger. They were just bigger. So then when I found out about Sandra Paul's Battenberg blanket, I just kept going with the size because it still works. You can still use her recipe, just do one extra round, sorry. So the difference between the Casapinka squares and the Sandra Paul squares are where you end up. So with the Casapinka squares, you end up finishing your square in the middle. So you're like, I don't know why, but it starts kind of halfway through, I guess, and you end up in the middle with your thread. Whereas with Sandra Paul's, they end up in the corner, which makes it easier when you're attaching. You want them to be in the corner, especially for these cream colored squares. So that's why I switched over, basically, because I always had it in my head that I was going to do these alternating cream colored squares. I just like the look of that better. So anyways, yeah, that's where I'm at on my Battenberg blanket. It's coming along, and I'm using an Addy 3.0 crochet hook for it. I don't know, is that 3mm? I don't know crochet hook sizes. I thought they were letters, but anyway, that's what I'm using. Okay, and then next up, when I'm not feeling well, and there was a period of at least a full week where I was not feeling good. So I have sinus issues that have gotten worse over time. They started in my 20s and they've just gotten worse with time. And I'm quite certain it's not allergies. I'm quite certain that it's related to different pressure systems. It sounds bizarre, but I can tell, like I'll start getting like tooth jaw pain whenever it's gonna rain kind of thing, like if there's like a rainstorm moving in or something like that. And I was looking it up, I'm like, this is crazy, like why am I getting this weirdo pain right before it rains? And it's a real thing. It has something to do with the pressure changes, and when your sinuses are congested or whatever, it affects you. So I had a whole week where it just felt like crap. And when I feel that way, I have a really hard time doing, like, concentrating. It's hard enough to do my job, to be honest. Like, I use all the brain power I can to get through my, my day job. And then afterwards, I'm just totally dead. So I couldn't do color work because I couldn't even concentrate on, keeping track of which color is next and stuff like that. And yeah, I certainly couldn't do things like shaping or lace and cables and stuff. Even though they're not super complicated, the lace and cables aren't super complicated, you still have to pay very good attention to which stitch you're on and stuff like that. Anyways, needless to say, I had a period where all I wanted to do was work on my crochet blanket because it brings me comfort. Like, it really does. I think I started this when I wasn't feeling well, and every time I'm not feeling well, I just pick it back up and work on it. So this isn't actually a pattern per se, it's more of a tutorial on how to make hexagon squares. So this is, I just call it my Hexie Blanket. Make sure I'm showing you the right way. Again, lots of ends to weave in, woven in some, but not all. So this is my Hexie Blanket. Can't even show it, it's so big now. It is 9 hexagons across, and it will be 9 hexagons vertically as well. But because of the shapes of them, it won't be a square, obviously. But I don't know what I'm going to do on the ends. I might do like half hexies to kind of bridge those gaps, or a border. I don't know what to do yet. But anyways, I have time to decide. So yeah, this is just a really neutral. I don't know. It's very calming to me. Very lovely. I love it. It's all my, I had a set of, I can't remember how many, 7 or 6 or something, individual skeins of worsted yarn from Knit Picks. I'm just looking what it's called. Simply Wool Worsted. And they were all in the natural shades. So like, from cream to light gray, medium gray, dark gray, and then there was like a light brown, dark brown, medium brown, and then I've supplemented with some Patton's classic wool worsted as well. So yeah, that's what this is. 100% wool, super cozy, super comforting. My go-to for when I'm not feeling well, it would seem. And yeah, I think I only have, so I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows. So I only have 3 more to go, and then I'll be done. Sorry, I jostled you here. There we go. And yeah, the colors, I was putting it up on our love seat the other day, just so I can see, like, I've talked about this, but I'm a little bit crazy when it comes to putting colors together. Like, I can't just like grab a color and put it next to whatever. Like, I actually plan them out so that none of the colors are in the vicinity of each other. Anyway, I had it spread out on my love seat to see, okay, which color am I going to do next? And it matches so perfectly with our furniture. I just didn't even realize, didn't plan it, it just happened. But yeah, anyways. So there is a pattern on, I think it's on a blog. It's also on Ravelry. I always put the link down below, but it leads you to a tutorial by Attic24. I think her name is Lucy. And she tells you how to make the hexies, and then also how to join them as you go, which I've been doing. So yeah, really enjoying it. I'm looking forward to having it done so I can curl up with it on our couch. And I cannot remember the size of the crochet hook I'm using for that. I want to say a size G, but all of the details are on my Ravelry pages if you're ever curious. Also, you can ask me questions down below and I will answer them gladly. Okay, so that's it for the yarny type crafts. And now I have one more craft that I want to talk about. So I have been wanting to try embroidery for a very long time. And in fact, I had pre-ordered a book by Emily Ferris I think it's called Painting with Thread or something like that. I'll pop a picture in of it. I was so looking forward to getting that book and trying out embroidery for the first time. And long story short, even though I pre-ordered it and paid for it through Indigo Chapters Indigo here, the book never came. So I had to contact them and they basically said, yeah, we never got the books. So they ended up giving me they gave me my money back, and they also gave me, sorry, there's a kerfuffle going on. The squirrels are fighting. They also gave me a little bit of extra money to use. I haven't used it yet. Anyways, long story short, didn't get my book, didn't get to try embroidery. So the other day I was on Instagram and I follow Emily Ferris, and she was saying that she was doing a discount on her patterns. So I was like, oh, that's a great opportunity. I'll just go and buy her patterns off of the website. I think it was through Etsy. So I ended up ordering 4 of her patterns. Oh, the chipmunk. The chipmunks are getting rowdy. Oh. So I ended up ordering 4 patterns from her website, and I decided to, so it's the pattern. She takes you kind of step by step through the process of painting with thread. So it's its own thing. It's not really like different types of embroidery stitches. It's just like lines where you're using to create shading. You're literally like painting. And I'm not experienced in painting, let's just say that. So this has been interesting. So she gives you the instructions, and then there's a separate page that you print off that it says right on it, print this page. And that is the actual design that you use. So you print it off, you get your fabric, and you place it over top of the printed page, hold it up to, like, say, your window, and so the light is shining through and you can see the design, and then you trace the design onto your fabric with a pencil. So I'm starting with the mushroom. What is the name of that mushroom? Fly agaric, I think. Yes, fly agaric mushroom. Pop a picture in what the finished design can look like. So yeah, this is what you do. You just print the page. You'll notice it's not very bright. My printer was running out of ink and we didn't have any cartridges at home, but I was insistent I'm just going to do this anyways. So I printed it and I could barely see it. I'm holding it up under my fabric, which is clearly too thick. I'm off to a great start. And yeah, so I just traced as best as I could the outlines of things. But it's not great. And I didn't even bother with the ferns. Like, there's all these little fern things around. I'm like, I don't know, I'm gonna wing those. This is art. It shouldn't have to be exact, right? Okay, so I also bought a little hoop. So I've started on my mushroom, and this is what I have so far. It's the stem. It's not terrible, but I'm very, I've discovered this about myself, and maybe I always knew this, but I'm used to following a pattern. When I used to cross stitch, if you know anything about cross stitch, it literally tells you in each square what color you put. So you follow that, you end up with a product that looks exactly how it was intended to look. this is so different because yes, she tells you, use this color in this section, but she doesn't tell you, each stitch, where to put it or how to do it or whatever. She just gives you the basic techniques and then the color to use. And so you have to know a little bit about shading and creating texture and stuff like that. And I am learning. Let's say I do not know this. My stem does not look, to me, it doesn't look round like hers does. Like hers has kind of a curvature texture to it. Mine doesn't. It's very flat. Yes, there's some shading. Yes, you can see like it's darker at the top and it gets lighter. But anyways, it's been a really good lesson in kind of letting go of preconceived notions of how things should turn out and embracing art in its creative form, I guess. That's the best way I can say it. It's just, yeah, it's been a good experience. The only reason I don't have more done on this is because my eyesight stinks. I used to cross stitch all the time, but with age, my eyes are just terrible now. My ability to focus up close is very impaired. So it's really hard to do. I need really good lighting. So basically I can only do it when I sit outside and I need to not be distracted. So it has to be, on a weekend kind of thing. So weekends outside in good weather with good lighting. And that's going to be few and far between, I think, as the colder weather starts coming in. So anyways, I'm enjoying it and I'm looking forward to getting more done. I'm really excited to do the top, like the reds and stuff, and make the mushroom come to life. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. And highly recommend giving it a go. Emily Ferris has so many beautiful designs. I first heard about her on the Gentle Knitter podcast a long time ago. I think Nicole was making a moth. She loves moths. And I remember thinking, wow, that's so beautiful. I'd really like to try that. And I made a note of the name, and I've been following Emily Ferris for well over a year, maybe 2. So yeah, she does nature designs, which I really appreciate. I really love her bees. So I got the patterns that I purchased are obviously the mushroom, the fly agaric mushroom, the bee, the moth, and the butterfly. So at some point I would love to, and I purchased frames for all, like the little hoop frames for the 4. So I'm hoping to do all 4 at one point. I have tons of embroidery floss from all my years of cross stitching. However, I still had to buy quite a few colors, which was surprising, but yeah. So that's a new craft I'm trying. And I think that is it. The crafting talk. So now we'll move into the Spread the Love segment, which I started last podcast episode. So last episode, I mentioned that I was going to do a giveaway, and all you had to do was tell me what your dream knitting was. So what you were hoping to cast on or dreaming of casting on at some point. So thank you so much for everyone who took time to comment. And I did last night, before I went to bed, I did a random comment picker, randomcommentpicker.com. I'll pop in the results. And yeah, so congratulations, Antonella. Thank you so much for sharing your dream knitting. I think she said she wanted to cast on a daffodil, which is awesome. I think you'll really enjoy it when you get around to it. And so yeah, Antonella, if you want to get in contact with me, I will get you and let me know which pattern you'd like from Ravelry. So maybe if you can contact me over on Ravelry or even on Instagram, all of my contact information is down below in the description. And let me know what pattern you'd like, and I'll gift you that pattern over on Ravelry. Okay, thank you. Thanks so much. Okay, so continuing with the Spread the Love, today I just have the one podcast. There's so many, there really is so many to recommend. But when I was putting my notes together last night, I got to this part and I started getting tired. It's been a long week. So I just have the one recommendation for you today. And This one is called Yarn Creations, and Adele is the host of this podcast. Adele's very sweet, and she is in, I believe she's in South Africa. She's South African, and she is making so many beautiful things over on her on her podcast, and she just has a really great eye for color. She's making, I think she's also making a Marie Wallin. She's making the lovage with her own color choices. I want to say she's using British Breed leftovers. But anyways, it's beautiful. And yeah, she's got so many gorgeous projects over there. And I highly recommend checking out her podcast. All right, so now I'll move into just really quick life updates. Really nothing crazy. I'm starting pottery lessons tomorrow, which I'm kind of excited about. I've never done pottery before, and my friend and I are taking beginner pottery lessons, so I'm totally excited to see what that's all about. It's a 5-week course, so we'll be doing that every Saturday for the next 5 weeks. And I think you make a project every week, I think. I'm not entirely sure. Anyways, I'll probably be showing them off if they're, you know what, even if they suck, I'll still show them off, because you know what, we're not perfect. We're not. I think you all know that about me. I'm not perfect. I have no problem admitting when I make mistakes or mess things up or whatever. So yeah, I'll show you my pottery results regardless of what they look like. So yeah, other than that, no real plans. No, just enjoying the fall weather and the colors that are starting to come out. There's really not many flowers left blooming other than my sedum is in bloom. And there's a few cone flowers left, but very few. Goldenrod is just finishing up. So yeah, the colors will all come from the leaves as they change. And so in terms of gardening, the gardens are done. So in the end, I did get many peas, which I was super happy about. I'm still going to plant more pea plants next time, so I get even more at one time, because it was kind of a few here and there. I'd love to have a bunch so that I can serve them with supper kind of thing, or throw them in a salad or whatever. But the peas were delicious. The beans, I ended up with 3, so we each got to try one. They were really good, but 3 beans, not very many. Carrots, I'll pop a picture in and you can see my carrots. Just want to say, 60-day harvest time, my ass. Those were in the ground for 3 to 4 months, and that's how big they got. I ended up with 3 raspberries, so we each got to try a raspberry. They were delicious. Hoping for more next year. The bush has definitely expanded. It's gotten bigger, so I'm hoping there'll be more. 0 strawberries, tons of flowers, no strawberries in the end. I had a bunch of tomatoes growing. Pretty sure I didn't keep track of which tomatoes I planted. I planted 3 different types and then didn't mark which were where, and I don't know enough about tomatoes to understand what is what. I think they were cherry tomatoes because they never really got big. They were just little the whole time. And we went away, forget where it was, when we went to Guelph, came back, and there were 2 left. Something had broken the branches right off and taken the tomatoes. And those 2 are now gone too. So something ate the tomatoes while they were full green. They weren't even, there was no color to them whatsoever. So no tomatoes for us. And that's it for the gardening. So not overly successful, but fun nonetheless. I will be doing it again next year. Yeah, highly recommend giving it a go. It's all a learning experience. Fun. It's fun. And I think that is it. Other than to say one last thing, and I should have done this at the beginning as opposed to the end, but I just want to say, thank you so much to everyone who has recommended my podcast, because I've been mentioned on quite a few podcasts lately, and that means so much to me. I really do appreciate it, and I think that's one of the things I love so much about that. I've mentioned this before about the knitting community, is how everyone's trying to lift each other up. There shouldn't be this sense of competition. I know sometimes there is. I know it's hard to get away from, especially when you're a podcaster and you see, like, if you're watching your YouTube stats and subscriber numbers and all this stupid stuff, and they really push you to want to create more and be more successful and blah blah blah. And it's really sad, actually, that YouTube does this. I'm dissing YouTube on a YouTube channel, so let's see how much this one gets recommended. But yeah, anyways, don't fall into that. If you're a podcaster, don't fall into that crap. It's so silly, so silly. Yeah, continue to support each other and lift each other up, and there's room for everybody. I just wanted to say that, and thank you. And if you're a viewer, I would really appreciate if you hear about my podcast recommended by somebody else. I would love to know that, because I don't always, I can't watch every single episode of everyone's podcast, and I don't always catch that. And I certainly wouldn't want to leave someone out. I always try to thank them, personally. So either on their podcast, or I'll send a message, through Instagram or whatever, thanking them. But yeah, if you ever hear that, please let me know, because I'd love to know where you came from, firstly, how you found out about me. And secondly, and most importantly, is to give thanks to that individual who mentioned me, because it's a very sweet thing to do, and no one has to do that. So anyways, just wanted to say that. So I'm going to leave it there. This is another long one, but I hope the next 3 weeks of your time are filled with lots of wonderful weather, whether it be spring, autumn, what have you, where you are, and filled with, of course, lots and lots of making. Take care. Bye.